Welcome to my channel. My name is Eric Coons. I'm a founder of an upholstery company right now, and I'm trying to build a national brand. And I want to play in the big leagues, and I don't want to play small. I don't want to just live a mediocre life. I want to go above and beyond. And I think learning how to create content, learning how to document the journey is something that's going to be super valuable to me in the future. I think just to look back on and be like, look where I started, and be able to see just kind of how I changed as a person and how I've grown and developed into the person I want to become, and if it even was all worth it or not, and just what I'm learning. And I think this is something that's pretty cool. I've seen some YouTubers and stuff out there kind of documenting, and Alex Hormozi's documented for quite a while, but I really just want to see what it's like. Maybe it'll reach the right person, helping out the right person, or maybe there's something in here that you hear that you needed to hear or something like that. But basically my goal here is I just want to share with you wisdom that I've learned, knowledge, skills, things that I'm currently going through or recently gone through or something like that, to hopefully that you don't have to go through the same amount of pain just as people have done for me. So with that being said, let's start on my first note that I wrote down. It doesn't matter where you start. Why do I say that? I say that because I knew nothing. There's like no requirements to start playing the game. I had to learn to write a check by paying my first employee. I had to learn there was a difference between city and state sales taxes by hearing about it a year late. I had to learn about wage withholding by drastically overpaying for 9 months. But I survived, and now I know. I'll take as many licks as I have to in order to learn. I'm willing to look stupid in front of others because I know this secret. Because over time, the one who perseveres, who learns and grows, is the most successful. And also, nobody thinks about you as much as you think they do. We're all too focused on ourselves to actually spend time thinking about other people. So get over yourself. Now, I thought that was a great place to start because I was stuck for a long time in this thought of, well, I didn't come from a business family. I don't have any business skills or trades or understanding. And so I thought to myself, well, how am I supposed to build this massive business, right? I mean, these guys had, some people start with trust funds, or their parents own big businesses and they know how to do all this stuff. Whatever these excuses are that came up. For myself, I was like, man, I don't have these skills. How can I become the kind of person, how can I build this kind of business without the skills, without the connections, with nothing, from scratch, with no money, right? All of my money I put into getting the tools to start the business, just to do the delivery work, right? And I still had started it out of my dad's garage because I didn't have money to get into a shop or anything. I mean, starting out, to me, hearing $1,000 was a huge number. I was like, how do people pay this? Because I hadn't had that. I had messed around with a few thousand here and there, but actually holding it, before I started my company, the longest I held a job was a little over a year. It was about one of the only jobs I had. And I was getting paid maybe $15 an hour, basically minimum wage. I wasn't earning anything. And so for me to then go into starting the business, there were so many things I didn't know. Everything from what you can charge, what people will pay, how to value a service, how to value products, how to value what it is that I'm selling, where people are paying for the value rather than just the product that you're delivering for them. And these are all things that I'm continuing to learn. And man, I tell you what, the reason I wanted to bring this up first as well is because it's a constant struggle. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know the perfect way to assess value of something, right? I don't know. For this business, for example, there's no standards in this industry. There's no standards for how to do the manual processes of the actual delivery work of upholstery. There's no standards for how do you sell a customer, right? Like, for example, like there's no standards of if a customer comes in, like what's your intake form, right? Like what information do you get? And why do you get that information, right? How do you walk them through a process of trying to get them what they want? Like if a customer comes in for a bench seat, either I can sit there and talk to them for 2 hours and say, okay, do you want this design or this design, or, you know, or I can just guess and be like, oh, you just want a bench seat? Got it. And then I'll build the bench seat however I want to build the bench seat and then bill it to them, right? There's no transparency. There's no understanding of getting what you're hoping for. You know, maybe some more custom shops or some guys, some customers will come in and be like, hey, I want this design with these colors. But that's very far and few between, right? Most customers just know, hey, I want this product. I want this end result. How you do it, I don't really care, right? And so being able to build that sales process of curating that experience for the customer of like, hey, this is the product that you want, right? You want this end result. They're like, yes, I want this end result. Great. To get to this end result, we've got to do this, 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 and this. And then they'll be, oh, that makes sense, right? And so then you'd be like, okay, we pick materials first, and then we're gonna pick the design, and then we're gonna pick patterns, and then we're gonna, right, go through that step to be able to get the customer. Not only are they gonna be able to visualize that they're going to get exactly what they wanted. Yeah. Not only are they gonna get exactly what they wanted, but they're also going to visualize it. And the power in that is it breaks down the barriers of distrust between customer and business, right? So the more I can build that trust up and be like, hey, I can give you the product that you are looking for, the more trust is there, the easier they're going to be to sell, right? I don't want to have to sell the customer on it. My goal is to present them with the options and they're going to sell themselves, right? They're going to qualify themselves into what I'm offering. Now, the goal is to be able to qualify that to the best of my ability, to give them every chance and opportunity to qualify themselves. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing a great job, right? But I don't want to sell a product to somebody who's not going to need it, because chances are they're not going to be as happy with it, which means they might leave a less good review or tell people that it's meh, the services that we provide are meh rather than premium, right? So if we're only providing to customers who know that they're going to get exactly what they want and are incredibly pleased with it, and you can't make everybody incredibly happy, but if that's what you're shooting for, that's like the business will grow off of that word of mouth rather than the meh word of mouth. And so that's something I'm learning, is like choosing my customers. And I'm at such a base level of that right now. I'm really looking forward to, as we grow, what that's gonna look like. You know, right now, I've got technically 2 employees. I had a guy retire last week, and then I've got another guy starting tomorrow. And then I've got one other guy. So technically I've got 2 employees right now, plus me. So 3 guys in the shop. And today is the 1st of September, Monday, Labor Day. And I'm in here getting work done. I've been building estimates and figuring out how to run my schedule and time management. And, you know, I think that's one thing that, like, as an entrepreneur, man, I have all of these visions and ideas, and like I have this vision for this standard of this company. And I see all these influencers and guys ahead of me working so hard. And I'm like, I'm jealous of how hard they're working, because I don't know how to work that hard, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like so much of my long weeks or, you know, long hours that I'm putting in is wasted on figuring out what the heck I'm even doing, you know, and not knowing how to leverage myself, not knowing how to get the right people in the right spots, not knowing how to hire properly, not knowing how to build systems, like what the systems even look like. You know, there's so many unknowns. And I feel like I'm so hard on myself. I feel like an absolute idiot most of the time because it's like I should know these things, but I don't, right? That's what it feels like. But why should I know these things? I've never done this. I've never done this before. I went to a trade school for automotive. I didn't go to a business school, right? And it's a totally different game doing the delivery side versus doing the growth, the entrepreneur side. Like, I'm starting to see why entrepreneurs are so rare, especially ones who actually build something, is because it's a totally different mindset, totally different lifestyle, totally different career, everything, than just a normal business owner. Like if you were to, owner operator kind of thing, where you're kind of more of a manager, and it's different than doing the work like sole proprietors, right? Like the skills that are required, the kind of person that you have to become to create that level of business that I'm hoping to create, that I am creating, it's just so different. I think I had all these desires to race cars, which I still want to do, and build my Mustang, and it's got a 2JZ Mustang, and do all of these other things while I'm building the business. And I thought that could all happen, right? I thought that I could spend like plenty of time with my family, and I could, go on vacations with extra money I had. And I'm really realizing that, especially the first few years, from everybody I'm hearing, is just brutal. Is learning how to business, learning how to offer service to people in a repeatable, consistent, quality assured way. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've been learning is how do you offer this? How do you offer this service to people so consistently and with the highest of quality? And not as an excuse, but the industry that I'm in has no standards for manual processes and everything, like I was saying. And so a lot of what I'm doing is like, what services do I actually offer? What do I actually do? What do I want this company to do? What makes sense? What is simplistic so that it can scale, but provides a service that is so needed, right? And how can I do it better, faster, whatever? And I think a big thing that I've learned is that I'm still learning what services I even offer. I don't know the whole niching down. Like, you got to niche down. I don't know if that applies to what I'm doing or not, right? Do I say, hey, I'm only doing automotive upholstery, or do I say I'm only doing boat upholstery or only commercial upholstery? Well, in the size of the city I'm in, it doesn't make sense to do that. I'd, go out of business or something, right? Or at least have a way smaller business. And so, it doesn't make sense for me to say, well, I only do boats now, right? Could I get by with it? Yeah, probably. But what about all the cars? And, is that leaving money on the table, or is that bundled into what we already offer? And so what I've been thinking through is like, well, the upholstery is very similar operationally between cars, boats, planes, restaurants, medical centers, gyms. Like, operationally, very similar. You're going to have some differences in, like, cars are going to have more plastic pieces, and you got to learn how to disassemble interiors and stuff like that. So that might be a little bit more operationally complex. But then boats, fairly simple. If we're being honest, boats are fairly straightforward. Planes, probably more so to boats, but it depends on the size of the plane. Like private jets, usually that's something takes a lot bigger of an operation to get into, because you got to account for downtime and all these other things. And so it's kind of interesting. But let me get on to the next point. I think I often have the perspective on life that learning is good, that knowledge is good. And so when I come across suffering, which is really anything I would say is like a prolonged experience, or an experience of something that's typically not going the way I would like it to, or quite the opposite. suffering is like a battling of wills, right? My will is that the business grows, but my will is that it grows easily, right? And that'd be a false reality or a false goal or a false understanding. Because when I then begin to grow, and it's like, oh, I've got 5 guys, and I don't have the jobs this week to keep them busy or whatever. At that point, okay, well, that's painful. Well, now I have a new problem to solve, right? So growing is just saying, hey, I want to solve all of these problems to get to this level. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of influencers will say, to build $1 million business, you need to endure $1 million worth of pain. To build $100 million business, you have to endure $100 million worth of pain. And so that's something that I have to remind myself of, is like, as long as I can get through it to the other side, as long as I can persevere and iterate throughout, I will learn and I will become a better person for it. I will have more knowledge. I will have more understanding. And to me, I fundamentally see knowledge and learning as a good thing. And so I want to continue to do that. I want to go through these struggles. I want to suffer, because the more I suffer, the more I can learn. The more I think of suffering as like it's like putting yourself on the right path, right? You ever been driving down the road and you got a misalignment in one of your tires, and you're like driving all sideways like this, and you're like trying to keep straight, or maybe your steering wheel's going back and forth, and you got to do this to keep going straight. I know, because my truck's like that right now, and it drives me nuts, right? But you go into the shop to get it aligned, right? And you might suffer. You might not have your truck for a day or two, right? You might have to pay an X amount of money. You're suffering, but then your truck's back lined up and it's going straight again, right? It's like my thought path of where I'm thinking. I'm thinking about going up here, but then as I'm going up this way, suffering happens when it's like, oh, hey, that's not the path I'm supposed to be on. I'm supposed to be on this path. And so it's like battering ram, boom, adjust me onto the right path. Now, if I kept going that path, I would have failed, right? Maybe I didn't know there was a cliff right up there. And so that suffering to put me onto the right path is required, but it's not comfortable. And so a big thing I've been trying to learn is how do I accept this uncomfortableness? How do I accept this suffering as part of life? And what mental frames do I have around that to make it a positive impact on me? I don't believe that, I don't know if it's possible or not to be happy when suffering occurs, but I do think it's possible to be reinforced in growing from the suffering, to be positively reinforced in persevering through the suffering, so that when suffering occurs, I am reinforced in knowing that I can push through, and positively reinforced in doing what it takes to win.